Welcome to the Sun Island.
Welcome. Another episode of Energy Bridge with Sun Island Energy. I am elated. We get to have get some expertise in here today. Speaking with Dalen Walters, and he's on the Fitzpatrick Group. So we're gonna be basically talking a lot about just financial type stuff, financial planning, and such the like. So. Dalen, nice to have you on, man. So let's just talk real quick about how we met, right?
Yeah.
We met through a group.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Networking in Action.
Cool. And how did you get a hold of that group, Networking Action?
I needed to build my network in the financial services industry, and it's always powerful to have a referral network.
Yeah.
So Networking in Action is like chair exclusive.
Yeah.
So there's only one industry like per person in the group. So like you in energy, there would only be one person doing that. There's only one person in financial services, one real estate agent, so on and so on.
Yeah.
And the point is to just progress your professional career with like-minded individuals that want to grow their business.
Yeah.
So you find people with a drive and that also want to help others. The idea is kind of like you give and then you'll receive. Yeah.
And I like that idea. That's the reason why I reached out as well, because it makes sense to, when you're building a business, to have folks who are like-minded in many regards. That's going to help you get to the next level. Okay, so you're a Houstonian native. You've always lived. Oh,
I was born here. Yeah.
Nice. So born in Houston. Give me a little bit about your story, man, real quick. Just a quick synopsis. Born in Houston.
Yeah, born in Houston. So the joke in my family, though, is that no one was born in the same country. So my dad is from Germany.
Interesting.
My mom is a Palestinian from Israel, and then my brother was born in Canada. And then they were actually house hunting when moved here, and I was born here while they were
Four-member in the nucleus family, and nobody was born in the same country.
Nope.
That is pretty neat, man. And just growing up in Houston, this side of town.
Yeah, I grew up basically more west, like so towards Katy.
Oh, nice. So you've seen a lot of transition, though, as a kid growing up, because, I've barely been here now. I wouldn't say, still like 11, 12 years, and there's so much growth, especially out there in Katy. It's intense.
It really changed also when they started building apartments out there. That's whenever it just like urban sprawl almost.
It just kind of
the population exploded.
It's kind of exploded. So when you're coming up, when did you get into motorcycles, man?
Motorcycles?
Yeah.
When I was 18.
18?
So yeah, I just always had the itch.
Do you fix them or you just ride them?
Yeah, everything. Yeah, to me, honestly, like as a motorcycle rider, I feel like you have to be able to do the basic maintenance because it's kind of a safety thing, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
You have a chain or a belt, you have your brakes, your shocks and everything. And it's one thing in a car, you to drop it off. If it breaks on the road, you just pull over.
Correct, yeah.
But you don't want something to happen to you on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So it's good to be I'm not saying you have to be a master mechanic, but it's good to know how your clutch works and all that type of stuff. So if something does go wrong, you're like, oh, okay, I can remedy this.
The most I know about motorcycle, man, it's not even motorcycle, it's them ATVs. You get it and go broom.
Well, those are
I'm not even
fun
gonna pretend that I know. But I own one of those, though. And we went to Surfside down here, and I act a fool on the sand.
Yeah.
I was
Down in Galveston?
Yeah, I was cartwheeling around my truck. I parked my truck. And at night, lights on and just going round and round, man. It was pretty cool. But yeah, so are you like a daredevil then? If I get a motorcycle, man,
sometimes, but
my wife would kill me, dude.
Definitely calmed down in these years now because it started when I was 18. I'm 27 now.
Okay, cool.
So,
man, you got some good genes, man. You said 18. I was gonna put you about 23 now. Wow. I was like that. So you got a lot of experience messing with motorcycle then.
Yeah, I mean, I've put across multiple bikes, like multiple hundreds of thousands of miles on them. So I like riding.
I met
for
a
sure.
guy, and he does that for a living. He's really good at it. He's like gets bike and deck them out, like the with some really cool design stuff like that. Yeah. So you're expert. Oh, you got into cars.
Yeah.
Like you had like where you kind of buy them at the auction and sell.
Yeah,
What
so-
was that experience like?
Yeah,
Before we go into that, let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. up
Yeah,
to that
because
point.
that's
And
definitely a part of the
let's talk about your
entrepreneurial venture.
entrepreneurial journey up to that point, and then we kind of dig a little bit more in your expertise currently, which is financial services, right? So yeah, just what's your entrepreneurial journey been like so far?
Yeah, I mean, always had the entrepreneurial spirit since I was young. I've always been really into computers, so
Okay.
like gaming computers, systems, servers, stuff like that. When I was in high school, I started my first venture, if you will. So I built gaming computers and servers for people and companies, and I did that for some years into college.
Oh, nice.
And then
U of H, right?
yeah, U
So
of
I
H.
said we were college neighbors,
Yeah.
university neighbors, because I'm
TSU.
TSU. Yeah,
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
going.
So I did that for some time. Really liked it, but it's really more of like a hobby for me. So I kind of just put that aside, and when I started college, I started working at an auto shop that they specialized in BMW, Porsche, and Mercedes. So that's
Okay.
really where I learned my know-how with cars on how to rebuild engines and stuff like
Okay,
that.
okay.
So specifically German cars, and my dad being German,
Yes,
I
yes,
love
yes.
BMW
Gotcha,
and Mercedes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I've always worked on them.
German engineering, huh?
German engineering, can't beat it.
That beat it. Yep.
So I worked there for some years, and then about my sophomore year of college, I met a guy that wanted to do a computer startup in India, actually.
Interesting.
So I went to India for a semester.
Oh, that's
to
pretty
do.
rad. While you were in while you were in
Well, I
school?
took time off from university.
Okay, that's what's up.
So I
Oh,
wanted-
you were itching, dude.
Yeah.
Like you get a chance, you're gone.
Yeah.
I'll keep
I
going.
wasn't.
keep going.
Honestly, I wasn't sure what major I wanted to do at the time.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I wanted to do the entrepreneurship program at UH, but they only accept like 20 people a year. So I was kind of debating like what I really wanted to major in, and then that opportunity
You
arose.
know you can't just glaze over. You went to India for a whole year.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. 6 months, but
6
yeah,
months,
yeah.
right? But yeah, that's a
Like
lot of time.
semester. So it was.
So go ahead.
It was related to just computer systems and infrastructure, kind of like utilizing some warehouses and stuff to build computer systems in India. It didn't work out,
It's
but
startups,
you know,
it
you
is what
you
it
learn
is,
you
man.
learn a lot
It's
in another
startup, man.
country and doing that.
So, was that the first time you left the country when you went to
No,
India? Or
I've
you've
been all over, yeah.
Oh, you've traveled around.
Yeah.
So you've been to Germany then?
I've been to Germany,
You've
been to Israel,
Israel.
been
Okay.
been to Egypt, all throughout. I've been to Jamaica.
Oh, you've been to
Yeah,
Jamaica.
I've been
How
to
was
Jamaica.
that?
It was fun.
I'm still going back
Yeah.
to India though, but
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah,
How, did
yeah.
you went
Like-
on like a cruise?
Yeah, it was
or-
on a cruise. My
Okay.
dad loves scuba diving, so when I was younger, we would go on cruises because it was the most efficient way
I
to go
see
to
where
like
you get your
all
adventure
the
side
different
from.
places.
Your dad is like
Yeah.
that, huh?
Yeah, my dad is he's an engineer, but
Ah.
his hobbies are scuba diving and flying.
Man,
So,
flying.
yeah,
Oh, that's
the-
nice. I went scuba diving once
Mm-hmm.
in Mexico. It was breathtaking, man.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first time I was doing it. So I had the beard at the time, and I wasn't used to it, obviously, because it's the first time. So I was having a little bit of trouble with water keep getting in, because you gotta have a tight seal.
Mm-hmm.
But I took some water in, and because they put us in a shallow to practice, right? Took some water in, and I had to make a decision. I might drown or I might have a lot of fun, and then I just paid a little bit more attention and breathe properly, the way you're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went deep. I went like 40 A 40-foot.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably not deep for you. 'Cause you said it like, you're like, "Oh, no." But it was fun. I saw a sea snake.
Mm-hmm.
I saw like those flying fish looking thing, and just
The rays.
Yeah, the rays. It was beautiful, man. So just you've traveled and everything. Was that time when you went to India? You traveled by yourself?
Yeah, I was by
By
myself.
yourself.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was definitely different being in a foreign country by myself, especially in like a startup scenario. So, because it wasn't really like a vacation thing, whereas a lot of the other places, it's with family or friends and it's for fun. So that was really just
Like,
business.
I'm gonna get rich for
Yeah.
starting a startup, and you're gonna blow it up.
It's very, very different in India. Being from America, like you're definitely viewed a certain type of way in the business world.
Got you.
I mean, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything.
That's really neat.
So,
Man. That's
Learned a
really
lot
neat.
about just
As
kind of.
as a youngster trying to figure it out, you just went. You've always trying to find what's gonna work the best.
Yeah.
And that was a really neat experience. So where did you what was your next step from there after India?
Yeah, so after that venture, I came back here and I was like, well, I want to finish my college degree, of course. I'm not going to leave that on the table. And based off of the credits that I had, I decided to double major in accounting and finance.
Okay, cool means.
So I did that because I really like numbers, and I always believed that in accounting, because it's kind of like that's the fundamental of every business.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I like things that can be universally applied as well. And so as an accounting major, whenever, especially as it relates to financial services, I feel like that differentiates me than a lot of other people, because whenever they show me the books, I'm actually able to understand.
Yeah,
all of
like
that
when a
type of
business
stuff.
owner
Yeah.
or a homeowner, and we'll talk more
From that perspective.
from that perspective. That's pretty neat. So your dad is a direct immigrant from Germany.
Yeah, so I would be a first generation. Yeah.
Because it's a recurring theme on my podcast. I always say immigrants get the job done. Immigrants get the job done, and that's the truth. How was it like, man, being a first generation by immigrants, raised by immigrants?
I mean,
what was that experience like?
I mean, whenever people looked at me, it's not like, I mean, they just thought I was from here. So I never really felt that type of presence, I guess, because people think, oh, you're from here, your family is from here, that type of stuff.
Okay.
It's not really until I tell people the background that they're like, oh, really? Like,
Oh, really? Okay, got you. But it must be some things that's just innate in your parents that you saw growing up, like just
like the
behind
food and the work ethic.
What was
definitely.
that like? What was that like?
Well, yeah. So both my parents came from nothing. So my dad's. So my grandfather passed away when my dad was young, and my grandma moved them to Canada. And so he was kind of like the breadwinner for the family. Like he worked in construction back then to pay all the bills and put himself through university. And he got both my parents are engineers.
Okay, cool.
And my mom.
Well, that's where you got the love of numbers from.
Yeah, that's definitely where it came from.
Sense.
And kind of similar with my mom, that they were very poor and they moved to Canada for opportunity, really. And yeah, she just from day one always worked very hard. Also put herself through school. They both met at the University of Alberta in Canada, so that's how they met.
Yeah.
Being from very different parts of the world.
Man.
And yeah, they instilled that in me. There's no handouts. Like sure, we'll help you when you need help, but you need to. You gotta get it yourself and.
It's typically the countries that we're coming from, assistance in any way, shape, or form does not exist for the most part. So when you come here and hear that's even a thing, you're like, what?
I think even just the opportunity alone, like some people that come from other countries, they look around and they see the potential that you can do here.
Yeah.
Also, like just starting a business here is so much easier, especially here in Texas, than a lot of other places. So they see that and they really go after it because it's a perspective thing. So when you come from a place where it's so difficult and then you're here and it's a lot easier, substantially easier to do the same thing that you wanted, or like your dream, I guess, per se, they really get at it. Whereas people that are from here, they don't have that perspective because they see it, that's all they've seen their entire life.
It's a perspective thing. What do you think would help some people who don't have that perspective to figure out how to get it? Just from your opinion.
I mean, traveling is a big part of it, and traveling with kind of like an open mind. So just
when you say traveling with an open mind, what do you mean?
Like really embracing other people's lifestyles when you're there.
Okay.
Don't go there kind of like, oh, I'm this way, so I expect people to do things my way. Go to places and do it their way. And I feel like you'll learn a lot more that way because you really know how they live. It's very different than here in America, and it'll really change your mind and change your outlook on how you do things, I think.
That's profound, man. That makes a lot of sense. Travel with more of an open mind, because then in college, because I went to, before I came here, I was in Oregon, and I did a liberal arts degree for my junior college. So we learned about a lot of different things about culture. You know, it's a liberal arts school, so that's kind of like what they teach about, you know what I mean? And there was either it was a philosophy class or something like that. They were explaining about, you know, when people used to travel to different countries or whatnot, and one country or a civilization settled another. And it was like I think it was English went to another country, and the English guy was like the way they blew their snot, right? In the country that he went, it's out on the floor. You see what I mean? And the English guy was like, "Man, that is gross. That's disgusting. Why are you doing that?" And then the other guy from the other culture saw the English guy blew his nose, and he blew it in a handkerchief and stuffed it in his pocket. And the guy was like, "That's disgusting.
You're keeping it with you."
Why would you keep that gross, disgusting bodily fluid on you all day long? Yeah. So as you said, it's legit perspective, right? And that's pretty neat, man. I myself, I've not been to a ton of countries, you know. I've been to Canada, Trinidad, but I've in the U.S. I've lived in the Midwest. Lived on the East Coast. I've lived on the West Coast, and I live in the South, right? And just because the U.S. is like a lot of countries in one, depending on where you are, just culturally, from my experience. And what that taught me was like people are just living to make the best life that they can, you know. And just like you said, you have to just observe it from where you are, the perspective, and you'll just see it. It's a beautiful thing, experiencing different cultures. So you approaching it with an open mind, that's excellent.
It'll definitely help with people's sense of empathy, I think, too, and being able to feel for other people's circumstances and situations, because you'll be able to understand
and empathy,
where people are coming from.
Yeah, empathy is a important topic in the world of entrepreneurial, being an entrepreneur, right? What's your take on you being an entrepreneur to just use that concept of empathy with the folks that you're actually helping, because you're helping them with their life, really.
Yeah.
You're helping them with their money, with their finances.
I mean, really...
let's approach it from that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, just viewing it from their perspective, and like the figure of speech says, like, walk a mile in their shoes. You really got to get to know someone, build a relationship with them, so you understand what their goals are financially. If you don't do that, you're kind of just a salesperson coming to the table with a mutual fund, saying, "I can make you money. You should give me some money," but you don't understand like what that person's goals are, or if they want to start a business, or how you can really efficiently help them with their life. And I feel like that's kind of the sense of empathy, like where you got to view it from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody just wants $1 million. Some people have different goals, and so
Yeah.
my job is to just get you to where you want to be,
Yeah.
and find the path of least resistance for what you want to do.
Make it as easy as possible, right? For them,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. So, what are some of the, okay, you're going to help somebody, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, keeping along the lines of empathy, that must help you significantly, the way you view it, and just naturally is like that open-minded and really have genuine empathy. That must help you get and retain client, right? Because it's people don't trust people with their money. It's just a lot of times.
Yeah, that's probably the thing that people hold closest to their chest, and I feel like just being genuine in who you are, I feel like that goes the longest way with people. Just caring about them, whether that's just grabbing lunch with them, like, hey man, we haven't talked in a couple months, let's grab lunch, or let's grab a drink after work, and just not having an agenda of something you want to talk to them about, but just
Yeah.
caring about that person. I feel like that really goes the longest way in financial services. I think that's also somewhere where a lot of people, they don't really think about it like that,
Okay.
because they're just trying to acquire clients, and they don't kind of stop also to go back kind of to my previous point, just to figure out, like, what do you actually want to do?
Yeah.
You know?
What's their long-term goal?
Yeah,
Short and long-term goal.
What's your short and long-term goals?
The richest Jamaican in history, his name is Michael Lee Chin.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he made his money, essentially. And he went to Canada, like a billionaire. And he did it through financial service. And you have this big thing about other people money, investing, stuff like that. So you have a business owner, you have a homeowner or whoever that's looking for financial planning or financial literacy or whatever you may be able to help them with. What are some of the questions you're asking them to even know whether or not you would be able to help them with your services?
Yeah, for sure. Just their career path is a big thing. Like, do you plan on starting a business? If you have a business, do you plan on selling it in the future? You mentioned it, like, do you plan on buying a house in the future? Just figuring out those goals is really key.
Just by asking them questions. And then once you kind of figure out where their goal is and what may or may not be beneficial to them, just broad stroke, right? In general, what are some of the services that you would provide or you know of that, say, a person who is making, I don't know, the average income is what, 50,000 a year or something like that. The average income, they are planning. I'm just a made up scenario, right? They're in their, say, mid 20s or early 20s. Probably just got married. They're no kids yet, and they're looking to probably purchase a home in the next 3 years or so.
Yeah.
They both, and this again, they're just making up a scenario, right?
Yeah,
but
no, that's great.
They both are college grads.
Okay.
Recently got the entry-level job, right? And they want to set up their future.
Yeah.
What are your advice to that family?
Yeah, that's a scenario. The young college graduate just married. We call it income potential. So throughout the course of their career, so let's just say they're 25, they want to retire at 65, let's just say.
Okay.
They want to work for 40 years. They just got out of college, their first job, they're earning that $50,000 a year. It's safe to assume that you're going to earn more money over the course of your career through ambition, industry. So, just wanting to do better for yourself, I'd say most people do. Industry, so if you're in oil and gas or electronics, or you can earn a lot more money, there's a lot more potential there just by what you're doing. And then also, like, through marriage is actually income potential, because there's tax breaks, things like that, or marrying into someone that's more money. It's a possibility. So we gotta kind of think about that from like a financial planning perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to earn more money in the future,
And that is your expertise, right?
Yeah.
Financial planning side. Keep going. Mhm.
so granted that we're going to earn more money in the future, I always ask people a simple question. Do you think income taxes are going to be higher or lower in the future?
Okay. And they're always going to say higher, right?
Most people, I mean, everyone I've talked to, they always say, yeah, I think income taxes are going to be higher.
Yeah, everything.
And I'll just also side note, just, we're how many trillions in debt. It's very unlikely that income taxes are going to go down just because the government raises revenue via taxes
Taxation,
and that way. So kind of the perspective is we don't ever want to defer our income.
Mm-hmm.
So what I mean by that is traditional financial planning, a lot of it is max out these deferred accounts such as like IRA and 401k.
Understood.
And based off the premise that we just talked about that, hey, if we're going to be earning more money in the future, also when you take into account inflation, is it really likely?
Which is at like 6.5%.
Right now it's very high.
Very ridiculous.
It's very unlikely that you're ever going to be in a lower tax bracket than you are today.
Highly unlikely.
And it's highly unlikely that income taxes are ever going to be lower than they are today. So we don't want to defer our income to a time when you're going to be making more money and income taxes are going to be higher. But that's traditional financial planning. Max out your 401k, max out your IRA. So I take a different perspective that we want to pay our income taxes now and put it into some sort of thing that's tax-free or tax-exempt. So that way when we pull it out later, we're not really beholden to the IRS.
Got you.
So we don't have to worry about income taxes being higher or lower in the future because the account that we put it in when we take the money out is tax-free. So, I mean, I'm a big proponent of Roth.
Okay.
That's generally a good
Roth, yeah.
choice. I can't say definitives, compliance, but
got
in general, we wanna consider these types of things as we're planning because
Don't those max out to a certain amount every year? Like
Yes.
You only can put,
So
what's the amount that?
there's 6,500 for the Roth IRA. Now you can have a Roth 401k. That's if your company offers it. But you can also do backdoor Roth conversions where you put the money in your IRA, and then you can convert it to Roth. You don't have to pay the penalty. You just pay the income taxes.
Got you.
So you convert it to a Roth, and then all the growth is tax-free. So when you take that money out later on, you're not penalized by basically being in bed with the IRS later on.
So just using Roth, you have 3 options where you can just a straight Roth.
So, yeah.
Do your work, because you can take out your own personal Roth.
You can
and
have a
plus you
personal
have
Roth
one with
IRA,
your job, right?
and you can have a Roth 401k if your company
If your
offers
company offer, and you can do that backdoor one.
it. And then you can do the backdoor Roth.
Oh wow! So you can.
And that would be for people that are above the income cap. So there is an income cap around 120, 130,000 where the government says you earn too much.
Is that individual or
Individual.
household?
Individual.
Individual.
Where they don't let you contribute to the Roth IRA anymore. So that's when backdoor Roth becomes a thing.
So that's one thing that you. What are other avenues that you try to help people with? The Roth is a great one.
Roth is a really good one. I mean, I ride motorcycles, so there's a big part of financial planning where I feel like a lot of people get lost is rate of return.
Okay.
But there's also a defensive part of financial planning,
Okay.
which is the insurances, stuff like that. We want to make sure that you're protected. If you're a husband and you're the breadwinner of the family and you have a $300,000 mortgage, you want to put the kiddos through college, stuff like that. You really should have some sort of life insurance in place that if God forbid the unthinkable happens, the house is paid off, the kids go to college, your wife has income replacement for the rest of her life, things like that. And I feel like that's overshadowed a lot because people, they want their money to work for them, and to them that's just viewed as an expense. Even though I'm 27, I've had real close buddy of mine pass away with nothing like that, nothing left for his son. And I mean, I tell you, man, it's completely heartbreaking.
Life just
And
changed
it's
in an instant.
It's To me, it's just a necessity. I
It
feel
is.
like that's the defensive part of financial planning.
Yeah, and the way you said it, I educate myself. Read through books. I read a lot of like just Tony Robbins material. I stay in touch just because you got to educate yourself on these type of things. And I've never heard or even read it where somebody say, "Oh, this is the defensive versus offensive." So the insurance side is what you consider more the defensive side,
Yeah,
right?
defensive side. We want our money working in multiple places at the same time, but we also want our money to be as much as we can in the tax-free, tax-exempt part of the tax code. So insurances also play into that, in that cash value insurances are tax exempt within the tax code. So I'm personally a big fan of, they call it whole life insurance. It's slow and steady wins the race. It's nothing that fancy, but all the distributions out of it are tax exempt.
Some people say they go for term. Why some people just push term?
Term and invest the difference.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
That's
you want to talk
because-
about that a little bit?
So the idea is, the slogan kind of at our company is we want to eliminate or greatly reduce compliance as much as possible the taxes associated with your money, the fees, and the volatility.
Okay.
People like
Taxes,
Warren Buffett,
fees, volatility.
taxes, fees, and volatility. That's really the name of the game. Whenever I was in college and you'd ask me, I definitely would have told you that too. Like, buy some cheap insurance or no insurance, whatever. We want to make money. Put all your money in the stock market. Let's make $1 million. But there's really a lot more to it than that. And also, whenever you do that type of strategy, you're really exposing yourself to the maximum amount of volatility.
Okay.
And people like Warren Buffett, he says avoid volatility at all costs.
Correct,
And
yeah.
a lot of people revere him as a pretty smart guy when it relates to stocks.
Yeah,
He says you want to buy stock and hold it long. And
Both him and Munger, his
yeah.
partner. Yeah.
And a lot of people are also into real estate. And then you've also heard of stuff like, hey, these really wealthy people, they don't really pay a lot in taxes.
don't.
Why is that? So they're not doing what mainstream finance is. So they're putting their money into something like the whole life insurance. There's something called the concept of infinite banking.
Okay.
It's basically like utilizing these cash value life insurances as your own bank. The money that you take out is considered a loan, not a realization of capital. That's why it's tax exempt in the tax code.
Okay.
So it's really like you're borrowing money against your dead self. So you're utilizing the death benefit in the insurance policy.
Yeah.
So let's say you take out $100,000. If something were to happen to you, that's
Is that the
subtracted from.
borrow, invest, die strategy?
It's you're leveraging that death benefit. But really, where it comes into play is this: we only use mutually held companies, and that's a big part of it. So these mutually held companies pay a dividend to the policy owners and not the shareholders.
Okay.
And so it's really slow and steady wins the race. You're not going to get rich overnight doing this. But what it allows us to do is kind of put our money in two places. So we want the stock market because that's where we're going to get the best rate of return by far. Love the stock market for that.
7% every year.
The
Average.
Now, if we put our money into something that's slow and steady wins the race, now the stock market looks something like this, right? So
But constantly going up.
it's
though, even
constantly
though- yeah.
going up. But the math isn't, like you said, it averages 7% a year. So the math of 7% a year, if I plug it into my financial calculator, that's not the same as 777, minus 10, which the stock market does. So it
Gotcha.
averages 7, but that's nowhere near 7% flat rate of return. And the financial industry is really bad about utilizing flat rates of return when they show people things. So they'll show them, hey, this mutual fund averages 9%. And then they'll say if you invest $10,000 a year at 9%, you'll have your $500,000. But we have to understand the sequence of returns.
Okay.
So if you're getting 10 every year, there's bound to be a minus 20 in there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
2021 is going to happen.
At least once every 10 years.
Yeah, 08 is going to happen. We can agree, we don't know when, but it will happen. So
Historically, there is some type of
7 years is the kind of the golden rule. 7 to 8 years is what they say. There's a market correction about some around there. So really the strategy is that we want to put something that isn't affected by the stock market. So when the volatility happens, that minus 20% happens, now we can take money from this asset that never goes down. So sure, it's not going to make you rich quick.
Yeah.
But what it allows you to do is that when the market does that minus 20, now you have capital that you can go and purchase the market in the best time possible, which is buy low, sell high.
One of that is on the way right now. So who are in the best position now, from your opinion? Because it's coming. Like
The people with capital are always in the best position.
Yeah, and what are some of the way that you suggest that people who've been doing it right over the last 5, 10 years or whatever, what are they doing to make sure that they have that capital? What do you think they were doing over the last, because, in the next year or so,
like
gonna be
case studies on, the big people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, stuff like that. That's what they're doing with their money. They're putting it into there because it's kind of like you're earning a good rate of return because it's actual compound interest. There's no negatives, and it's tax exempt. So when you compare it to something in the stock market or a 401k,
is this like in a whole life?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So when you compare it to something in another asset, you have to make it the taxable equivalent. So if I'm getting 5% over here, even though I'm getting 8% over here, there's taxes involved.
Gotcha.
So we gotta, figure out what's the taxable equivalent yield. So you gotta really compare it apples to apples.
Gotcha. And so so that's the defensive side of things.
Yeah.
Just get some type of whole life insurance, and a lot of these insurance. Go ahead.
I mean, there's not really I can't say definitively like you should do that. I'd have to get to know the person. There's a time and a place for everything.
It's true.
Because especially with insurances, it does go off of a health rating, things like that. So I got to get to know the person, see what's even applicable for them. There's kind of a strategy for everybody. Now that is definitely very beneficial if it applies to the person.
Understood.
Just because of the tax exempt qualities. And there's another thing in the financial industry that's dollar cost averaging. Have you heard of that?
Yes. Go ahead.
So the idea of, you're putting money every month and time in the market wins timing the market.
Correct.
But the problem with that is that, you have access to a 401k when you're doing that. That's normally how people are dollar cost averaging. And the best time to dollar cost average would be when? 2008. COVID. But what's the reality of those times periods? A lot of people don't have jobs. They're not dollar cost averaging in the best time to be doing that theory. So that's why I say we want to be putting our money in multiple places, at least something that doesn't go down. So whenever...
Because I've heard the term, the dollar cost average, but I don't fully grasp it. So you said they'll put their money... elaborate a little bit more.
So, like how we said earlier, the stock market does this, right? So the idea is instead of trying to time the market when it's low and high, you just buy all the time. So in the long run, you make out on top because you're buying when it's low. You're also buying when it's high, but you're always taking advantage of those opportunities because you're just always buying.
Got you.
So over the course of 30 years, you'll make out a lot better if you, like for example, if you just put $100,000 in day one, and just let it ride, or if you take that 100,000 and then you buy it in tidbits over the course of 30 years, mathematically, that's really the ideology behind it.
Gotcha.
So
you're allowing for compound to work more in your favor. Is that what that is?
It's more that you're going to take advantage when the market is down because you're just always buying. So whenever something like 08 happens, you'd be buying the shares on the fire sale per se.
Gotcha.
The only problem with that theory is that most people dollar cost average with their 401k and brokerage account, and that's kind of the time when people are hurting, when gas is expensive, eggs are $10 a dozen.
Right.
You're not going to be like, the first thing to go is probably that contribution there because you need to pay rent.
Correct.
But then now you're kind of dollar cost averaging your way out of the profits because you're not buying whenever it's the best time.
If people should say, I want to know my next move financially, and they seem to they're doing the regular stuff. They have the insurance, they might be investing in stocks, having dividends, investing in real estate, the insurance, all that type of stuff, and they seem to have most of their bases covered. Are there any additional things that you would recommend to somebody like that figure that they have most of the fundamentals covered?
I would say then it's more of an efficiency outlook, just making sure you're doing it in the most efficient way, from the real estate to your stocks to things like that. I'm a big fan of anything with long-term capital gains.
Okay.
And the reason for that is there's really a compounding effect. So when you put your money in tax-free or tax-exempt assets, when you take that money out, you don't realize any income to the IRS.
Correct.
So long-term capital gains has its own tax brackets, 0%, 15%, and 20%. And the way the government puts you in those brackets is they actually look at your income. So by not realizing any income from your investment sources, such as Roth or insurance, things, even some bond, like municipal bonds have that too. And then now you're not realizing income. So that same real estate, that same brokerage account that you have is now in the 0% long-term capital gains bracket. Now, given their standard deductions, there are still some taxes involved, but the point is you're closer to 0 and you're not paying 20.
Got you.
So just that's really the efficiency, that's the efficiency standpoint.
Where it's like you got everything more or less sorted out, but you're fine tuning.
Yeah.
So little areas where you can make more or not give up as much.
Yeah.
What do you think about some of these folks who do like overseas banking? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm not actually that familiar with overseas banking and things like that.
Okay. Whenever you get an opportunity, right, with individual who, aren't fully aware that, say, for example, you see all the green light that they need to get this life insurance or whatever policy, because whatever they may have told you, and you're saying, hey, this is the way to go, and for whatever reason you cannot get it through to them. How do you, because you're just trying to help, right? How do you coax that individual to say, hey, man, this is really going to help you? How do you usually try to get them over the hump?
It really comes down to education. When you lay it all out to people in the right way, eventually it's going to click with them. So, I'm big on education with my clients. I'm not just going to say, hey, you should do this and just trust me. I'll run the numbers and show you why this is a good idea. Especially from the insurance's standpoint, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of make that apparent. Just from a protect yourself scenario on how cheap it really is.
Okay.
Relative to normally your salary or things of that nature.
So, say for example, a small business owner like myself, and I'm looking to getting to the installation side of business. So my guys by law has to be insured, right? But that's just workman comp, workers comp. So I want to build a business long term with longevity, right? And I would like to offer additional benefits to them, either in the form of additional insurance or some type of 401k plan. Do you have any case study where it's not a big company, but they choose to go that route to kind of create some type of security for the employees? Do you have any case study or any?
Not necessarily a case study, but I have worked with business owners that do that. I mean, I'm always a big proponent of Roth. So if the business owner can offer that to their employees, that's really big.
Can Roth be a matched or no?
Yes. So the 401k little history side note was created in 1978 from the Revenue Act, or I call it the Tax Revenue Act, because what it really was is corporations were offering pensions at the time. So now pensions were taxed. Corporations had to pay the tax on the pension.
Correct.
So they wanted a way, basically, to think, hey, how can we offer some sort of retirement, but it also be a tax deduction for us? So here comes the 401k. So now the match in a 401k is a tax deduction for your employer. So the match from an employer will always be traditional. So the employer will not match a Roth, because the whole point of it is that
for them to get that tax break.
To get a tax break. So, I mean, I've never seen it where an employer also matched Roth. But normally, how it works is if there's a 5% match, they put in the 5% Roth 401k, and then the employer puts 5% in a traditional 401k.
In the work that you do they allow you to become a fiduciary as well, or you are just a fiduciary where if you help somebody, it has to be
in their best interest. That's I like that you brought that word up, because I feel like it's that's something they love to throw around, because they say, oh, well, as your fiduciary, I have to do what's in your best interest. But you can really skew that a lot of different ways.
Interesting.
It's like, I feel like that's a fancy term people throw out to, push whatever they want to push, because it's like, well, I'm your fiduciary, I have to do what's best for you.
But isn't that like an actual thing, though?
It is an actual thing, yeah. And you're right that as your fiduciary, I have to do what's in your best interest. But now, I mean, a lot of people have differentiating views on financial planning and what's most efficient and things like that. So the word kind of becomes arbitrary, in my opinion, because it's so prevalent and everywhere, and everyone says it, that
what's your best financial hack?
Financial hack?
Yeah.
I mean, really just looking at things from a tax perspective. If we can minimize
the tax a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I did study accounting, that's really the name of the game. Like, you can make a lot of, like, if you make a lot of money, but if there's a 30% tax bill on your $1 million, now what's better, 800,000 no taxes, or $1 million that's got to stop at the IRS?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they're like, well, I want the $1 million, the balance is bigger. And that's kind of the bait. We want to look at it that we got to incorporate, okay, how does the volatility affect your money? How do taxes affect your money? And how do the fees associated with whatever account that is, whether that's real estate and, title companies, stuff like that, or fees associated with a brokerage account, how does that impact your wealth?
Gotcha. And are there different ways where, like, business owner can try to structure their business itself that would...
For sure. That's definitely a really big thing. So there's LLC, S Corp, and C Corp. And so S Corp and LLC, they're passed through. So they're taxed at income tax. So what that means is the top marginal tax bracket right now is 37%.
Okay. Yep.
So when your business starts
How
earning...
much you got to make a year for you to be in that
top bracket? I want to say it's 500,000, but I'd actually have to look at my tax tables again
Go ahead,
to get you the exact number. The point is that tax brackets are marginal, right? So it's every dollar above that threshold that is now taxed at the 37%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So whenever you earn $5 million in your business, your effective tax rate will be a lot closer to that 37, because a lot of those dollars are being taxed at 37%. Does that make sense?
Understood, yes.
Now, a C Corp is the corporate, and that's just a flat 21%. So where the business structuring really comes into play is if you're earning $5 million a year, there's a point where income-wise, your effective tax rate becomes over 21%. Meaning on that $5 million, because a lot of them are in the 37, let's just say your effective tax rate is 29, meaning every dollar that you're earning is taxed at 29%.
Got it.
Because you can basically calculate that out. So once that effective tax rate is above 21%, now it makes sense to do a C Corp, because now you're saving money on taxes because you're 21% flat. There's no margin. There's no.
Because the income has gotten to a certain level where, well, that just makes sense. If
Yeah.
you know, if you actually know, though, I would imagine most people who are starting to get into that type of
A lot of
income-
people don't. Yeah.
Really?
Because, I mean, business owners are really good at their business. They're not necessarily accountants or CPAs or lawyers or anything like that.
So they're basically blowing cash just
So
because of lack
just
of
because
information.
because of the lack of information. I mean, corporate structuring is a really, really big thing for sure.
And there's lots of other topics that I'd like to touch on, man. Because another is trust a way where people can avoid taxes too. I don't know. I'm asking, do you know?
That's kind of a misconception. You don't avoid taxes from there's not really a way to avoid taxes. That's the IRS is always going to come after you. They
Right.
want their cut for sure. That's really where
you don't deal inside trust. You don't work with-
that's a lawyer.
That's a-
Lawyers
okay,
do
gotcha,
trusts.
gotcha.
But really, that's where the insurances come into play too. Is so insurance proceeds are tax free, and normally why you're doing a trust is that you want something to go to somebody. And so there's an estate tax, things like that. And you'll take out an insurance policy, basically that covers that tax bill. That's
Yeah.
what people like Rockefellers and that like are doing.
Disney guy
So
isn't like
really the people, anyone that you know of that's done generational wealth, if you've heard of that,
Yeah,
that's how they build it. So when you pass away, your assets, when they are passed on to your kids, it takes a pit stop at the IRS. They want their tax bill. So that insurance policy, basically what you're doing is you're paying that tax bill with the insurance policy. So that way all of your houses or business or whatever actually goes to
so
the
no,
people you wanted
IRS
to.
can't
So
come off your
uh,
actual
yeah.
assets.
So estate sales?
Yeah.
That's the reason why
Estate
they
sale
happen is
exists.
because they have $50 million in the estate, and then now there's a 40% tax bill on that estate, and that wasn't accounted for. And then the people that it's going to, well, they don't have that money, so now it's being sold
That's
off.
intense. It could cut your wealth in half. I wonder why they say sometimes the wealth doesn't translate from one generation to the next because of people making mistakes like those.
That's why I say the defensive planning, that part of it is really a really key proponent. It's more than just making money with your money. You want to make sure you're covered on all bases.
Sides,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, you touched on a lot of interesting topics on today, man, and we could go into a lot more stuff, man. But I appreciate you coming out. It was cool meeting
My
you
pleasure.
at that event.
Yeah.
And when is our next one coming up? by the way?
Second Tuesday of every month.
Second Tuesday, so I'll definitely be there. It's a group. It's a great
Yeah.
group of folks, just to be around like-minded business owners. It's helping me, up my game. So it was great meeting you, man.
Yeah.
Happy that you're able to come out and do the podcast. And one
Thank
love.
you so
man.
much for having
You're
me.
very welcome, man. One love. Take it easy. All right, cool.
Thank you.
Good vids, man. So, guys, I really create these content to educate, inform, and inspire whoever is at a point to be inspired. If you made it this far through the videos, I would truly appreciate if you give us a like, a subscribe, turn on the notification bell, support us, because in all honesty, it means a lot to us. So thank you, and I hope you got something of value from sharing your time with us on today.